Hello everyone, welcome to week 1 lecture 1 of CSE 1 OF. Before we start in, I would like to give you some information. I, Rudri Kalaria, will be your lecturer for this subject this semester and Rick is your subject coordinator. Both of our email details are on the screen and you can contact us with any problem you have in the subject. Things that you need to know before we start today's lecture is CSE 1 OF is a programming subject and it involves a lot of programming throughout the semester. There is a lot of content to cover in little time, so you need to be on track and you need to go through lectures, lecture workshops and labs that have been that we are uploading on LMS and all the resources that we are uploading on LMS. We do not expect you to have any programming background for this subject because we are going to start with very basic and then we'll take you to the intermediate stuff. Labs will start this week and Zoom links will be available on LMS. So all the communication for this subject will be through LMS, so you need to check your LMS regularly. Lectures and workshops will be recorded. So as mentioned, lectures will be pre-recorded and will be made available to you on Monday or before any time during your actual lecture time, which is on Tuesday from 2 to 4. And workshops will be live, so you need to attend the workshop. The timing of the workshop is 4 to 5 every Tuesday. It will then be uploaded on LMS. And as mentioned, you need to attend your labs through Zoom. So if you haven't allocated yourself yet to any of the labs, please do so because labs will start this Wednesday. LMS is very important and it will be your main way for you to access your subject content. So all the subject content, all the resources for this subject will be uploaded on our LMS. So it's important that you check for every new content every few days. Lecture 1 covers overview and general information about the subject, what is memory organization, how to write your first Java program, what are the components in it, and introduction to variables. Here are some of the reading materials that you can access for extra information you need. And lecture 0 on LMS is already made available to you and you need to go through it, and it just involves computer basics and general background of the subject. Again, these are some references, some books that you can use as a reference material. I have already given a link to one of the book on LMS, so you might just need to click on that link and it will take you to the ebook of the reference book. Now, as I mentioned, lecture 0 on LMS, it covers all the computer basics, what is operating system, how data is stored, and you need to read that material by the end of this week. So let's get started with this lecture. The first concept that I want to introduce is bytes and bits. I know it's not a very new concept and we all have heard about it. So computers work entirely using electrical signals. So it's either on or off. Just because it has two states, on and off, we use a special numbering system called binary, which has a base 2. So binary with a base 2, it has a 0 and 1, 0 or 1. So 0 can be considered as off signal and 1 can be considered as on signal. The most popular number system that we use is decimal, which is base 10, and the number that contains in the decimal number system is starting from 0 to 9. So what happens if you want to write a bigger number than 9? So it, as you can see, it only covers 0 to 9. So if you want to write a bigger number, then we use two symbols. And you can think of them as ones, tens and hundreds. So again, it's bases of 10. So if you can just consider this one as 10 raised to 0. And this one will be 10 raised to 1. Because our base is 10 here. And this one will be 10 raised to 2. So 10 raised to 0 is 1. So you can see that if a number is 136, then it's going to be multiplied with 1. And 10 raised to 1 is 10. So 3 is multiplied with 10. And 10 raised to 2 is 100. And 1 is multiplied by 100. So that gives you a 136. So if a number is greater than 1, then we can use two symbols. As mentioned, binary, we only have on and off state to work with. So that's why the base of binary is 2. And let's say if the base is 2, so we go 2 raised to 0, 2 raised to 1, 2 raised to 2, and so on. So we started from right hand side and then we go to left hand side. So this will be 2 raised to 2, 2 raised to 3, and 2 raised to 4. So let's say this one, you can see that this state is on, so which will represent 1. This state is off, it will represent 0. This state is again on, represents 1, 0, and 1. Okay, so now if you want to find out the decimal of it, so we multiply it using 1 times 2 raised to 0 is 1, and 0 times 2 raised to 1, which is 2, and 1 times 2 raised to 2, which is 4, and 1 times 2 raised to 3, which is 8, and 2 raised to 4 is 16, and then we add them together to get the decimal, 21. Now bytes and bits. So bits is a single binary digit, 1 bit. It can be either 1 or 0. A byte is 8 bits long. So when 8 bits combine together, it becomes a byte. And you can see here the difference. So if it's just 1 bit, then we call it bit. And if it's a group of 8 bits, then we call it bytes. So that's the difference between bits and bytes. Now memory organization. So everything you write in your program needs to be stored somewhere. So it gets stored, all your data gets stored inside a memory. And this is to represent how the memory organization is and how RAM organization works. So a computer's RAM organization is considered as a sequence of bytes. Again, bytes, you know that it's 8 bits. So a sequence of bytes, and every byte will have a memory address. Okay. So let's say if your byte is stored inside this particular location, it will have an address here. And you can see that it's a collection of bytes. So different bytes here. Now these ones here. So let's say if your data is of 3 byte long, then these 3 bytes will be stored here with the starting address stored in byte 1. And this you can see is of different color. It's a 2 byte data. So 2 byte location with address byte 4 as a starting address, and then so on. So this is how your memory is organized, and this is how your bytes get stored inside the memory. You shouldn't forget that every byte have to have an address. So what's the need of, and why just Java? Why we are learning Java? Because there are few reasons. It works on most of the operating systems. Lots of learning resources are available for Java, and this is very basic. This is very fundamental course for you to learn and to know the concepts, and you can apply these concepts in any intermediate Java or any other object-oriented languages. Okay, so let's say when you write your code, you just write it in a readable format. So then it's your Java code, and then when you compile it, it generates a Java bytecode, which will be in the form of .class file. So your Java code, when you compile it, it generates a Java bytecode, which will be in the format of .class. So whenever you'll find out that whenever you will compile your .java file, a .class file gets converted, and then you run it. So JVM is responsible to run that file, and you get the output of the program that you have written. So that's Java program basic, and that's how it works. You write a code, and then you compile it, and then you run it, and you get the output of the code. So next up is first Java program. So let's consider this as an example of your first Java program. This program adds 2 numbers together and displays the total. So that's the problem description, that write a program to add 2 numbers together and display the total. We will discuss all these components that you are seeing here as we proceed with the slides. So this is where your program starts, and this is where your program is ending. As you can see that there is a curly bracket open and curly bracket closed. This is your main method, and these are other things. So we'll discuss once we proceed. So now, as you can see that your class name is called first, so your file name needs to be first.java. Okay, so in Java, your class name and your file name needs to be same, otherwise it won't compile. So as I said, in Java, the name of the class and the name of the file must be same. So this file will be called first.java because the class name is first. What is the class? Yes, later in the subject we'll discuss what a class is, what an object is, etc. Now compiling the program. So let's say once you have finished writing this program, which is on the screen, and now you want to compile and execute it and get the output out of it. So once your program is typed, you need to compile your code to generate bytecode. Remember, I told that whenever you compile your code, it will generate a .class file and it will convert it to a bytecode. So in order to compile your program, this is the command that you need to use, which is javac and first.java. So first.java is the file that you want to compile, and javac is the command that you need to use to compile the code. Always the file name with .java extension. So when you are compiling it, you need to have .java extension with it. Now, in order to run the program, to execute the program, the command is just Java, and you just write your file name without .java extension. So while running it, there is no .java extension. So that's how you compile and run your code. Why we are not using IDE? So we won't be using any integrated development environment tool for OOF at least. So no Eclipse, no NetBeans, no any other IDE. Reason being, IDE hides the details how development works, and we want you to learn from scratch and how a program works, how you develop a program, etc. So we will be using Unix environment, and we'll be using VI or VI modified editor for this subject. These things will be introduced to you in your labs. So first thing is the outer shell, as we discussed. So public class first. So this is the outer shell of your class, and everything that you code, everything that you want to display output of needs to be inside this outer shell. Now next up is public static void main method. So this is where the execution starts. So you need to remember that your execution will always start from the main method. So this is the starting point where the program executes. And we'll learn what all the parts of this means over the course of the subject, like what is public, its access modifier, what is static, what is void, it's a return type, this is a method name, and this is an array of string. But all these components, we will discuss it later in this subject as we proceed. Now, if you see it here, you see that there are variables declared. So what are variables? So declaring variables, you see that there is three types. So first one is type, second one is the name of the variable, and third is what value you want to assign to that variable. Okay, so a variable is a name for a memory area, as we mentioned that you need to allocate memory areas for the data that you are storing it in the memory organization, right? So variable is a name for a memory area. So if we consider this one, as I mentioned, it has three parts. The type, in this case, the type is integer. That means we are supposed to store only whole numbers. Okay, so the type tells Java what can be done with this variable. So as the type is integer, we can only store whole numbers and how much memory to allocate. Second up is the variable name. In this case, the variable name is number1, and the third part is assigning the value, which is 10. So we are assigning the value 10 to the variable number, and that is of type integer. And the last part of the program was to print the details on the screen. So system.out.println, and then a message inside the opening and closing round bracket. So now println is responsible to get Java to display what's inside the opening and closing round brackets. So anything inside this will get displayed on the screen. Anything inside the opening and closing quotes will be displayed as it is on the screen. So let's say if I'm writing the total of or the total is, etc. So whatever I'm writing inside the opening and closing quotes will be displayed as it is to the screen. Plus sign means concatenate, so you are joining the parts together. What I can do is I can write 4 different system.out.println statements, or else I can concatenate using plus operator. So here plus means that you are concatenating the parts together. And number 1, as you can see that number 1 is not inside opening and closing double quotes. That means it's a variable and it will give you actual value, and is again inside double quotes, so it will print it as it is, and number 2 is not inside double quotes, and so on. So the result of this, the output that will be displayed to your screen is going to be the total of as it is, and then number 1 was stored as 10, so 10 and 5 is 50. Okay, now let's discuss different types that we'll use in a Java program. So as I mentioned, whenever you are declaring a variable, whenever you are using a variable, that variable needs to be declared first. So you cannot use a variable without declaring it, otherwise it will give you an error as an undefined symbol. So you need to tell Java what type your variable is going to be and what is the name of the variable. And variables can either be of a simple value or a reference of or address of an object. So a simple value, just how we seen it in a previous example, int number 1 equals to 10. You are assigning a simple value to variable 1 of type int. There are 2 types of data types, primitive data types and non-primitive data types. Those which store the simple value, direct value, are called primitive data types, and the later is called non-primitive data types. So there are 8 types of primitive data types, which is byte, short, int, long, float, double, boolean, or character. These are primitive data types because these variables, the variables of this type, they store an actual value and not memory address of an object. All other types that stores the starting memory address of an object are called non-primitive data types, and we'll see it later in the subject. Now, integer data types. So those variables which store whole numbers, either positive or negative, are integer data types, and we have 4+1 types of integers in Java that store values in different amounts of memory. Okay, so those 4+1 type is byte, short, int, long, and character. You will use int type unless you have a specific reason to use any of the other types. Okay, so you will be using int types which stores 4 bytes. And all these data types will have a different amount of allocation in the memory, different amount of size. Real number data types are those with precisions, those that have fractional parts, and those which are not whole numbers. So there are 2 types of floating point numbers in Java, and they are float and double. You will be using double type, 8 bytes, unless you have a specific reason to use other type, which is float. Now, a few more details on variables. Variables need to be declared first before using them, and it will be always in the form of a type and a variable name, and that's what we call declaring a variable. So when you write a type and when you write a variable name, you are declaring a variable. And then, as I mentioned again, you need to declare variables in the program before you use them, and the type can be anything from the types that we have mentioned. The variable name, sometimes also known as identifier, needs to follow some convention, and that is you need to start with a letter or an underscore symbol. Rest can contain letters, digits, underscore symbol, etc., but it cannot be start with digits. So you need to start your variable name with a letter or the underscore symbol. $sign is also permitted, but it's reserved for some special purposes, so it's not recommended that you use $sign while naming your variable name, or you start with a $sign. No. Yes, and very importantly, it cannot be a reserved word. So a reserved word is something which has already predefined meaning in Java, and they are reserved for certain purposes. And some of the reserved keywords that are listed here are, let's say int. You cannot have a variable name as int. You cannot have a variable name as float, etc. So all these words that you are seeing on the screen are reserved words, and you cannot use them as an identifier or as your variable name because they have a different purpose. The best convention for identifier is a camel case convention. So let's say if you want to give a name of your identifier with more than one word, then you choose to start the name with a lowercase, and then another word can be combined with a uppercase letter. So your class name will always start with uppercase letters, right? So variables and method names, it's good to have started with a lowercase letter. So these are some examples of camel case convention, where shoe size, they are two different words, but then you have given a variable name as shoe size, and number of shoes is valid, cost of shoes, etc. So these are some examples. Yes, Java is case sensitive, so you need to make sure and see what you are typing, because it will differentiate between uppercase and lowercase letters when it comes to anything, when it comes to identifier, when it comes to any other things in your program. Now next up is literal. So each primitive data type specifies a range of values, and for each data type you need to know how to write its data values in a program. Okay, for example, here let's say that you have said that your single weight variable is a double, so the literal type needs to be a double. So 5.0 is a literal type of type double. If it was an integer, then it would have been just 5. So Java 8 version introduced underscores into numbers. So when you are writing a literal, which is this side, you can use underscores into the numbers, but you need to make sure that you cannot have an underscore before or after the decimal point. So that's a note for you, that you cannot have underscore directly before or after the decimal point, or at the beginning or end of the number. So this will just work in Java 8. So Java 8 introduced that you can use underscores into numbers while writing literals. Now, every statement that you write, every line of code that you write in Java needs to end with a semicolon. So if you are declaring an variable, then it needs to end with a semicolon. If you're writing a print statement, it needs to end with a semicolon. So every statement in Java needs to be end with a semicolon. But that won't apply when you are writing a method. So you know how we wrote public static void main, and then we had an opening and closing curly bracket. You cannot write public static void main and then a semicolon in it. So every statement needs to end with a semicolon. Now, comments won't get executed. So comments are for, so let's say if you are writing a program and someone else is reading your program, and they are not very much familiar with Java, those comments can explain what this program is about, what this method is about, etc. So they are ignored by the computer, but they are just written in the program to explain the reader on what this method is doing or what the program is doing, etc. In Java, there are two types of comments, block comments and line comments. Block comments is, you will use it when you want to comment multiple lines, so more than one lines, and line comments you will use when you just comment one single line. So the block comment is enclosed with /* and a // and may extend over more than one line, and a line comment starts from double slashes and it will just continue to the end of the line. So these are the two comments that we'll use in Java. Next is white space. All the blanks, tabs, new line characters are known as white space characters. Java will ignore these white space characters unless they are used to separate keywords or identifiers. Okay, so you know how we use int space variable equals to 1. Yes, that is considered because that's the format. But any other white spaces that is not meant to separate keywords and identifiers will be ignored by compiler. White space, why we use them? Because it makes programs easier to read and it's more into like the indentation is good, etc. So that's the reason that why we use white spaces for indentation and for blank lines to separate the programs, parts of the programs and make it more readable. Yeah, this is already discussed slightly in previous slide, but program output to the screen. So as I mentioned previously, if you want to display your information to the screen, you need to use system.out object, and there are two methods to display things on the screen, which is print or println. Print will print on the same line, println will print on the new line. So system.out is an object that is linked to the screen and that will print out details to the screen. Print and println, it can take variety of things as an arguments, which is numbers, characters, boolean values, expressions, strings, etc. Few of the examples are system.out.print, I am a fish, so it will display I am a fish to the screen. Sorry, this S was supposed to be here. So system.out.print shoe size. You see how it's not inside double quotes, opening and closing double quotes. So this is a variable name, so it will print the value of whatever value is stored inside this shoe size. Again, this is my shoe size is, so again inside double quotes it will print this as it is, and it is concatenated by the actual value, so this one, and system.out.print and will just print a blank line. It will go to next line. So this is how you display output to the screen using print or println. Now, how to take input from keyboard, right? So there are several ways to take input values from the user from the keyboard, but we'll start it by using scanner class. So scanner class is responsible for taking inputs from user, and system.in is an object linked to the keyboard. So when you are declaring scanner class, system.in object is responsible for taking input from the user. So as I mentioned, to input values from the keyboard, we create an object of the scanner class that is linked to system.in object. So scanner is a class, keyboard is an object name to that class, equals to new scanner system.in. System.in because we want to take input from user. This class and its object and constructor, this will all make sense after week 8 because we'll introduce the concepts of class and object and the constructor, what constructor is, etc. But for now, scanner class is responsible for taking inputs from the user, and system.in is the object that we need to attach if we want to take input from keyboard. Now there are several operations provided by scanner class, several methods. And all these methods you need to access it with whatever name you are giving here. So let's say I've given my object name is keyboard. I'm giving my object name as KB instead. Then all the methods will be accessed by KB. Here my object name is keyboard. So all the methods will be accessed by that object name. So when we say keyboard.nextInt, so nextInt is we are expecting user to enter an integer, that's why nextInt. There are few other methods as well, as in next double, next boolean, next line. So next double will be when we are expecting a double from user. Next boolean will be when we are expecting a boolean from user. And next line will be when user is going to enter a string. So we can use certain operations provided by the scanner class to obtain input from the keyboard. Yep, so next double is when we are expecting user to enter a double. So that's some basics for scanner class. Of course, this scanner class will be discussed in detail in few lectures, lecture workshop, and even in lab classes as well. So that was it for your lecture 1, and in lecture 2 we'll discuss primitive data types, what arithmetic operators are, what is the precedence, and type compatibilities, and how the type is compatible, whether it's compatible or not. Thank you, and that was it for lecture 1. I'll see you in lecture 2.